Okay, hello everybody. I hope that I have enough memory on here to actually get this. This would probably be a little bit of a shorter review because it's not really a. Well, I don't really know. What was the runtime on this movie actually? Well, I guess it was almost 2 hours, so it was a little bit longer of a movie, but I don't think there's really too much to talk about, or as much to talk about in this movie. I should probably say the name of the movie too, though. Last Night in Soho, which was one of those movies that unfortunately just due to everything that was happening last year, I just wasn't able to go see it in theaters. But it is what it is, and I was able to watch it on Sunday, so I was able to finally see it. And yeah, it was one of those. It was one of those movies that kind of seemed like a hidden gem, I guess, from last year. And I would say that probably definitely still stands as far as that goes. So it's about this. Now, from the trailers, you didn't really know what it was about. It kind of seemed like maybe she was traveling between two different times, which was kind of part of the plot, but also she was trying to solve this girl's murder from the 1960s, and obviously she's an aspiring fashion designer, so I guess kind of it seems like her mother died when she was fairly young, and she was raised by her grandmother for most of her life, so her upbringing was, I guess, mostly kind of revolved around like older music, older fashion. She lived out in the country, outside of London, so that's where she's going now, is into London to, I guess, go to school to become a fashion designer and obviously show off her skills. And when she gets there, her classmates are, like, her dorm mates, I guess, are less than accepting of her. Kind of poke fun at her the entire time, especially the one that she's roommates with. Just yeah, totally trashes her throughout the entire movie. Obviously because of her own insecurities, and yeah, things start to go pretty crazy when she does actually end up moving out of her dorm, and she moves into this little, I guess you could call it like a kind of an apartment townhouse maybe. I don't really know how to describe it. But she moves into that because she obviously wants to get away from her uh, roommate, right? Because her roommate just has no regard for privacy or her, so she just needs to get out of there. And the woman says, yes, you can come. The ad says women only, so she doesn't want any, I guess, men or male visitors in the apartment complex that she's running. It doesn't really seem like there's anybody else living there but um, Eloise, and she goes by, I believe she goes by Ellie, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, I guess Eloise just isn't quite as. Now, what was her last name? Eloise T. I know that much. I'm trying to remember what her last name was, though. She does end up using her full name as her. Once she becomes a fashion designer at the end of the movie. But there's obviously a whole bunch that happens in between there. And the transitions between her going from. It does take her a while to get into the whole 1960s, back and forth thing. Uh, I guess just because she feels such a connection to it, she ends up staying in the same room where I guess somebody died. So maybe it was like the spirit pulling her back into the older times. Anyway, the very first transition is like her throwing the blanket over herself, and then all of a sudden she's just in the 1960s, and she can see herself in the mirror as this other girl, Sandy, whose real name was Alexandria. And Thomasin McKenzie was the one who played Eloise. Anna Taylor-Joy was the one who played Sandy. Diane Rigg played Miss Collins. And there was a couple other characters, obviously, that are of importance. Sam Claflin played a cop back in back in the 1960s, that tried to get Sandy out of the business, I guess, but to no avail. And then we had him played as an The older version of him was played by Terrence Stamp, who was just known as a silver-haired gentleman because throughout the movie, we don't really know who he is. We're thinking that he's the killer of Sandy, who we think is Jack, who was her, I guess, kind of love interest in the very beginning, but then he just decided to become her manager and like treated her like absolute crap throughout the entire movie. So instead of fulfilling his promise of making her into a singer, even though he gives her an audition, he ends up just pimping her out, and she ends up just becoming basically a prostitute for all of the for all of the men that I guess Jack says that she has to keep happy, even though that's not true. So she never really gets what she wants. She never is at the forefront of the fame, and she just ends up being used by everybody, really. So then one night, Jack tries to kill her, I guess, but she, in the first vision that Ellie has, or Eloise has, it is of Sandy dying in the room. So, but by this point, Eloise has gone so crazy that she almost ends up stabbing her old dorm mate, so that was pretty nuts. And she can see like all the spirits of the guys that had been with Sandy, but we're not really sure why she's seeing those spirits. And at the end of it, I guess we find out that Sandy went on this whole like killing spree basically. After she had killed Jack, she went back and killed all of the other guys that she had ended up sleeping with. And I guess she didn't think they deserved to live. I mean, I don't know, it's kind of hard to say there because it's like, really, it's the lesser of two evils. I mean, they were just doing, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain because she didn't really want what was happening to her, but she was still going through with it, even though she didn't want it, because I guess she thought maybe it would, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? It would speed her career along. Maybe she trusted Jack a little bit more than she probably should have. And then obviously Jack got a little, I would say a little too much in his own like head about what he was doing, trying to micromanage her and stuff. And yeah, their relationship seemed to be going well at first, and then after that audition, it just went all downhill because he didn't really care about her. He was just happy that he was getting some sort of limelight as well. So, yeah, I think maybe he probably deserved to die, especially when he's trying to kill her anyway. I guess that was self-defense, but maybe some of the other guys could have lived a little bit of a longer life, I suppose. She didn't really need to get revenge on them because I suppose they were just doing what they thought she was providing, right? But anyhow, yeah, it's kind of a lesser of two evils things because by that point, when Eloise finds out that Mrs. Collins is actually Sandy, it already looks like it's too late, and her love interest in this movie is John, played by Michael Adjo, I want to say, and her roommate was Savannah or Savon Carlson. Jocasta was her roommate, and yeah, she just treated Eloise like absolute crap in the entire movie. Right from the very beginning, when she first moved in, it seemed like everything that had happened to Eloise, of course, had happened to Jocasta somehow, and she just wanted all the attention on her, and none of the attention on her roommate. So. But Eloise does go to the cops at one point and try to explain what's happening, and she thinks that the killer is still alive, obviously, as we know. The cop from earlier, who we think is Jack, is actually the cop, and then he ends up getting killed, so it's just like, oh my god, what is going to happen next? Where is the killer now? And then we find out that the real killer is actually Sandy this entire time, and she tries to kill... She tries to kill John. I think that was his name, right? She tries to kill John, and she tries to kill Eloise at the very end of the movie, so that I guess nobody finds out who she actually was. And then she ends up just sitting down in the bed and killing herself at the end of the movie in the fire because I guess she obviously didn't want to go to jail and she was just at the end of her. She just had enough. She didn't get what she wanted out of life, and then she lived in that place for so long and just after everything was after she'd been caught, she was just done. She was old anyway, right? So she just wanted, I guess, an out, and that was how she was going to get it. So, yeah, definitely a lot of twists and turns, and I did like how the transitions just got to the point where you weren't really sure when Eloise was sleeping and when she wasn't, and whether she was actually just having the visions during the time she was awake. Obviously, when she invited John over to her place at one point in time, you could tell that she was actually having the vision while she was awake. So it was just the two worlds were kind of eventually just colliding together, and she couldn't tell what was reality and what wasn't. So, but at least John throughout the movie did try to help her and never just threw her to the wayside like everybody else did, which was nice because at least he ended up at least he ended up sticking around. Even when she finally was a full-fledged fashion designer, he was right there by her side. So, yeah, I guess we know who to trust throughout that entire movie. And it was kind of hard to tell in the beginning because I thought maybe he was one of the ghosts or spirits that she could see because she could see her mother right from the very beginning of the movie. So that was kind of interesting. A little creepy, too, at the very beginning because you really don't know what's going on, but I guess she has a gift and her grandmother knows too. So, yeah, a very interesting movie, and I would say definitely one to go watch if you like. I guess it was more thriller based, a little bit of horror elements, I suppose, with the whole spirit thing, but yeah, it was definitely more thriller based, I would say, and definitely worth the watch. Very very cool kind of fresh concept as far as that goes towards like the thriller horror genre. Um, yeah, so I really did enjoy this film. I did give it a 9 out of 10. It got a 7.1 rating on IMDb, and that's with 99,000 people rating it, right? So it's quite a bit. But I give it a 9 out of 10. I thought it was deserving of that. It's one of those movies where you could probably watch it again. And I would say definitely for me, it was one of the better movies as far as that goes because you didn't really know the twists that were going to happen until they actually did happen. So that's pretty crazy. And yeah, that's it for this one, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye for now.